How do you see it?
Well, thanks, Harsh. Thanks a lot. And I would also like to use this opportunity to thank the entire IIM Sirmaur management, the UDGAM 3 team, and the esteemed panelists which are there on there with me, Sushant, Satya, Harsh, Krunal. Very happy to be here. So it's an interesting topic which we have chosen for today's discussion. So as marketers, we keep continuous track of what are the key touch points of each of our customers, which make a play a role in the physical purchase, the final purchase the customer does. Now there are certain touch points which a customer uses for information gathering. There are certain touch points which place the product in the consideration set of the customer. And then there are certain touch points which play a critical role in the final purchase. And accordingly, we marketers engage with the customer through each of these touch points. Now, what has happened is that Harsh rightly pointed out that over the last 18 to 24 months, pandemic has nudged all of us to move digital. And like other sectors, the digital adoption and enablement has also happened at a fast clip in the agriculture sector. Now, I would like to point out four key avenues which have moved from physical only to digital over the last 24 months. So number one is the information gathering process, which is done by a farmer or a rural customer. And the entire peer-to-peer commerce which happens amongst rural customers between farmers. The process of agri input buying, which is done by the farmers. And something which is very interesting, exciting for me as a marketer per se, is the the rural influences, how that is changing or that has changed over the last 24 months. I'll elaborate on all these 4 points one by one. So if you talk about the information gathering process of a rural customer or a farmer, typically he tends to gather a lot of information before he makes his final purchase. He will go to a village chopal, a village hut. He will attend a lot of OE service camps. He will attend the Krishi Melas, and he will gather information from all these sources before he makes his final purchase. Now what happened is, because of the pandemic, all this was not possible. So what did he do? He moved to those agri apps, the new agri apps which have mushroomed over the last 3 4 years, to gather his information. He connected with his fellow farmers on these platforms across India. The good thing was that when he was doing it in a physical way, he was restricted only to the farmers in his region, in his village. Now he could connect with farmers across India, gather inputs from there, and even share his inputs. And accordingly, his information gathering piece was taken care of. Second piece is peer-to-peer commerce. Now, typically, this entire piece of second-hand tractor purchase and sale, or the livestock sale and purchase, happens in a physical way, wherein in rural towns there is a day in a week or a day in a month where all of these congregate at a particular location for this particular thing. Now, again, because of pandemic, this was not possible. So what did they do? Again, there were certain agri apps which they got hooked onto, which allowed for the listing of their tractors, second-hand tractors, and which connected these sellers and buyers, who can then conclude the deal through this platform. Third is the purchase of agri inputs, and that is very interesting. What has happened is, again, there are specialized apps and portals which are facilitating this agri input purchase for the farmers. Currently, the ticket size is small, so typically it's the seeds, the fertilizers, the pesticides which are getting bought. But I see over a period of time, even high value items like tires getting bought through these apps. So that's again an interesting phenomena. And fourth, which I said in the beginning, is the most interesting and the most exciting for me personally, is so typically what happens is, if a farmer has to seek an advice, the typical influencers are say a tractor mechanic, or a influential farmer, or a sarpanch, or maybe a local OE dealer. What we have seen is that there's a new breed of new age farmers or YouTubers who has come into being over the last 24 to 36 months. Now, these are guys who are young farmers who create content, digital content across various fields of farming. They review new machines. They talk about what are the key new farming practices in place. They create this content and they put it on their YouTube channels. And what has happened is, over a period of time, they have built a base of 25, 30 lakh users who follow them, who seek, who look forward to the videos from these YouTubers. And that then plays a key role in their decision-making process. So these are some of the trends which are there, which are the physical trends in the agri industry or the rural economy. And some of these we have also tried to incorporate into our marketing campaigns. So that's it from me, Harsh.
Absolutely, Gaurav. I think in last one decade, rural India has transformed like anything. I think the 61 million micro, small, and medium enterprises, most of it which have in and around tier 2, tier 3 in rural India, has been pushing the backbone of India's economy. And if you look at the decennial census in last 10 years, the degree of urbanization in the country of 34% has been pushed to a large extent by a phenomenon which is the growth and rise of census towns in the country, which are 75% non-agricultural, and they have urbanized with as high as 54%. So every factor in rural India, as rightly you mentioned, Gaurav, right from internet penetration, common service centers becoming the hub of a whole lot of digitization activities, right from information gathering to inputs getting towards farmers. And it's not surprising now, one of the initiatives by Government of India, which is the Kisan Suvidha app, launched by Narendra Modi, is very widely used by farmers for information gathering and collecting information on minimum prices on a lot of inputs. So I think all of that, and if you look specifically in last 14 to 18 months, 45 to 55% of e-commerce sales has been driven by not urban India, not the metros in the million plus cities, but it has been the tier 2, tier 3 town, which is also a phenomenon which is furthered by the great disruption that we've seen in last mile logistics, where we are serving upwards of 34,000 pin codes across the country with digitization of India Post, etc. So I think a lot of excitement there will come back, Gaurav. Moving on to Sushant, I think Sushant represents nutrition category as a whole, which has been a whole point of focus in last 18 months. I think consumers have never focused on health, immunity, safety concerns, and their buying pattern and behavior has also changed in last 18 months. There are more green teas consumed in the country than ever before. There are more multivitamins. There are more organic foods that consumers are now getting onto with fresh foods, etc. So what's that bigger thing that you're seeing, Sushant, when you look at this industry in last 14, 18 months, and how the underlying physical transformation is pushing the boundaries further? Great to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Harsh. So clearly, I would say it's been a blessing for me to be part of the nutrition category. Actually, a lot of industries have obviously kind of been uh, they've been hampered, and there've been issues that have happened in certain industries, right? But there are certain categories which have done extremely well, specifically during COVID. If I talk about supplements as a category, which I handle, I think the big transformation which has happened, at least from a consumer standpoint, which is actually very important, is earlier consumers used to look for a lot of, so they used to look for curative solutions earlier, right? With pandemic coming in, consumers, the perception started that we need to look at more preventive solutions. I think that entire shift from a mindset perspective, from uh, curative to preventive, I think that's a big transformation which has happened from a consumer mindset standpoint. And then obviously, we being the market leaders in the supplements category for so many years, we've been benefited because of that. And there are certain products which, and you must have heard of the entire immunity buzz which was going on, right? There was more than 500% surge in the search for immunity specifically, right? And clearly, and you could see so many examples of immunity products, even chai giving immunity, even clothes giving immunity, right? So these are the kind of products that kind of came in because of the surge, and the people were really concerned about immunity. But I think from a consumer standpoint, for us, it was beneficial because we really rode on to that particular trend, and we focused on our nutrition products which provided the immunity support as well. So I think that's from a more consumer and product standpoint. I would say from a consumer experience, you're talking about from a digital standpoint, I think the big transformation that we did was entire transformation from a retail setup. So consumers used to pick up stocks almost 80% was from physical stores that we had pre-COVID, and 20% was via e-commerce, via our website. What has happened post-COVID is it has completely transformed. It's moved to 80% e-commerce to 20% physical store pickup. So I think that's one big transformation which has happened specifically in our channel, from a consumer standpoint, from an e-commerce standpoint. From an experience standpoint, what we've also done a lot is, for example, we introduced this entire concept of QR code on the bottle itself, right? So what you could do to build your experience is you scan via your QR code that you have, QR app that you have in your phone. You scan it in front of the bottle. It opens up on a website. You can go into details. You can cross sell, upsell. You can directly buy it online as well once you've scanned it from the bottle. So those are the kind of initiatives that we have done to really get closer to the consumer. And what I've always understand and always feel it's all about. So earlier we used to talk about location as a key for retail. What has happened now is more about how you provide experience to the consumer. How do you give better experience to the consumer? How you can provide, how you can connect with the customers in a more authentic way. I think that's something which I would say has been some of the initiatives that we've done to really get closer to the consumer and provide them with the solutions that are required in the market. So that's probably I would want to.
No, absolutely, Sushant. I think it's a whole new change that we see from the buying behaviors of consumers also, at least 5 years before. The entire shopping experience from front of the pack is gradually moving towards back of the pack. QR code scanning leading to multiple recipes, detailing. I think that's the advent of a digital consumer journey which consumers are seeing. And I think with nutrition and health concerns becoming increasingly important, consumers are more interested in what goes into the product and the entire experience around it. So I think a lot of change there is happening even within retail. I think D2C, which is allowing consumers to directly access newer brands. We've seen within the pandemic brands like Sleepy Owl, brands like Mama, etc., and a whole lot of others which are directly now reaching out to consumers. And for newer brands specifically, it has never been a great time to start a brand and reach out to consumers with D2C market projected to around $100 billion. So that's, I think, a lot of development. Will continue to discuss that, Sushant. Coming to Krunal, I think OTT space in the country and all of these students here with us, I think everybody has been touched by the OTT wave. I don't think Gen Zs and Gen Y are any longer queued to a regular television. And if you look at the statistics in India, around 350 plus, close to 400 million consumers, of which only metros contribute 11%. So it's an all-Indian phenomenon, including rural India, are touched by OTT. Krunal, with Z5 and the entire OTT changing the way people view content and consume it, how you're seeing this transformation, and what's the big thing that you've seen in last 14, 18 months? How's the pandemic changed the business, and how does it look forward?
Thanks, Harshvardhan. So I think from a business perspective, right, I think we've always been a digital first business, right? So from a perspective of how we approach consumers, from a perspective of how consumers consume our content, I think what happened during the pandemic is it just fueled the fire, right? I think that's essentially what happened. And I think that trend sort of started when Geo sort of crashed the prices, right, in the year 2016, and sort of led the way for digital consumption and accessibility for people across India. So I think just to in terms of highlighting how things have changed, right, in the pandemic. So till 2020, India had the cheapest data in the world, right? We were at about what, 0.06, $0.09, per GB of data in the world. Now we are at a rank of about 28 to 30. So what the shift that you see is that the pandemic, obviously across the world, has even made aware telecom companies, data providers of the fact of the potential that is there, right? So within a span of a year and a half, 27 countries have made data cheaper, right, in the world, and then we've come down to 28, 30 rank. If you look at the number of users that have added, right, and consumption that has happened in India itself, we've added about 700 million users now, and the projection is by 2025 we're going to reach about 900 million to 1,000 million users, and it will be driven by rural audiences. Right. If you look at the trends that have happened, right, the way TikTok has grown, led by a lot of consumption from rural audiences. And I think it has just fueled the fire. If TikTok would have been here, obviously it would have been a different ball game. But I think when TikTok moving out, if you look at the other apps which are available, right? So there is Chingari, Josh, MX Takata. There are multiple these players. You see the rural audiences now getting platforms to make their voices heard, talent being projected. And I think somewhere the pandemic has fueled that. It was always there. So these mediums were always available. Internet was always available. But I think with options not being available, it has just fueled the fire. And audiences are now coming on board and are experimenting with multiple platforms. Specifically to OTT, obviously, I mean, it you would have seen the numbers, Netflix adding 10 million users, we adding about 20, 30 million users. We are currently at about 70 million user base with a projection of growing exponentially. We have about 4 or 5 million active users on the platform, right? You've seen trends of content consumption with Squid Games coming, Korean content coming, and doing great in the market. Premieres happening on digital platforms, big movies launching on digital platforms. So I mean, definitely there has been a consumer shift where now, with the access across the board, with the data being cheaper, with mobile being available, internet penetration, infrastructure slowly developing, I think world content is soon going to come on our platforms, right? And consumer behavior has changed that way. You prefer staying at home watching content rather than going to the cinemas now. uh, it's not that the cinemas are not going to stay. It will stay because it is a different experience that you're talking about. But I think, yes, digital is here to stay, where content will be experimented, and audiences will look forward to new content coming on the platform and probably watch Salman Khan movie in a theater and not on digital. Though Salman Khan movie did really well for us on digital as well. Uh, so from a business perspective, yes, I think it has changed. It has given us more scope. It has given us more reach, more audiences, not only in India but across the world. From a marketing perspective, a lot of things have changed from a traditional point of view, where we obviously now, so for example, events that we do now, right, are all digital events. And with the technology that is available, it basically practically looks as if, you're there at the event. We launched our, in US in the month of June 2021, where we had Priyanka Chopra and our, leaders virtually going live and launching the Z5 app in the US, right? And it was seamless, right? And that is what technology helps. And that is where I think things are going, where physical events will no longer be a standalone thing. It will be a physical plus digital event, a physical plus digital launch, because now audiences are so well connected, not in India but across the world, that they want to experience it no matter where you are. You're sitting in China, you're sitting in US, the things happening in India, they would want to understand. And I think that's where it's going, where obviously now a lot of decisions are digital first in terms of the marketing that you do, in terms of the business decisions that you take, because it has better reach, less cost, it's efficient, it gives you data, it gives you numbers, and helps you take decisions on the go. So I think these are few things that have sort of changed for us in the OTT space, not just in India but across the globe.
Absolutely, Krunal. I think the three C's are essentially converging together. And as you talked about content, community, and commerce, I think the way content is completely evolving and building communities, whether it is the rise of social commerce, the homegrown social commerce companies like the Joe Shringaris of the world, and eventually, I think the way even consumers are looking at content and how it is available not just on social media, whether it's pure Facebook or Instagram, but how even YouTube is allowing newer content producers to reach out to the consumers. I think it's phenomenal. We haven't seen independent rise of independent artists and content makers more so at any time before. So I think this larger shift in the industry from larger screens or the box TV to now a much more distributed and completely independent kind of a content consumption pattern has a whole lot of opportunities, and we'll come back, Ronald, on understanding from you how the industry is evolving towards weaving specifically the commerce and monetization part of it. How do you see it as we get global audiences to the same content and much more engagement increasing there? Moving on, I think we have Satyanarayan Murthy, and I think Satyanarayan has seen one of the biggest top views change in the advertising and media industry in last couple of years. And I'm sure that he's seen a huge change during the pandemic as most brands and advertisers move towards digital mediums. There are digital mediums and digital media that is coming up, digital advertising that's coming up across and globally. So over to you, Satyanarayan. Take us through your lens, how you've seen this top shift happening across the media industry.
Right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for the opportunity. Thanks, Harsh, for moderating it so well. Let me first start with a small video that I wanted everyone to watch to explain how digital is becoming mainstream. So, Sonali, if I could request you to play the video once, please.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think we can hear the audio.
Sharing, can you see if audio? It's not audible, Sharing.
Not audible? Surprising. Okay, so let me actually explain this. This is part of the work that we are fortunate as an organization to have built. Okay, so this is a Cadbury's ad which came out during this Diwali. We call it not just a Cadbury ad, right? It's an amalgamation of multiple things, right? So it is just to set the context. It is about how can Cadbury's make a difference and make the local traders, right, who've been the worst affected during the pandemic, get back on their feet, right? So that was the whole, context with which we started engaging with them, right? The whole idea was that can we do a difference, or can we bring about a small change in individually in the way we look at how we could make a difference to that trader who's the worst affected during the pandemic. So with that as brief, we sat together. There's a creative team, there is a tech company, and there was a media buying company, which is this group. And as an organization, we sat together and said, what do we do to make a difference, right? So with that came this idea of saying, what's it that can really make a difference, right? And then we said, how about making Shah Rukh Khan be the brand ambassador to the Kirana store next door, right? And how do you achieve it? So the whole technology part of it, thankfully, enabled this. So we've integrated AI, we've integrated voice, and we created, we kind of did a whole lot of facial recognition software integration in the ad, and then we actually created an ad where any retailer in any part of the country had to just put in the name of the store, the location of the store, and he could create an individual or a personalized video of Shah Rukh Khan, uh, urging people to visit that specific store in that specific city, in that specific location. And that video, the store owner could share with everybody in their social, contacts through WhatsApp. Could put it up on his Facebook page, could put it up everywhere, right? So that is the power
So,
of.
sorry to interrupt. If you want, we can play the video right now.
All right, okay, play it.
Is audio coming, Sonali?
Shalin, you can unmute, please.
I have to, yeah.
Can you check the audio tab here and increase? Yeah, try it again. Yeah, I don't think it's coming through.
Shalin, it's not audible even now. If you can get it.
Hello, am I audible, Sonali?
Yeah, you are audible, but video is not.
It's on speaker only.
Okay. Think
Why don't
there
you
is
do
an
one
issue.
thing? Let's try this now. Okay, so all of you are on
Yes,
some WhatsApp group, right? So why don't you share this video on the WhatsApp to every participant here?
yes, sir, we can share.
So we could probably, give each one 40 seconds so that they could watch the video, and then we could probably get back. And I'm sharing it in the panelist group so that they could also have a look at it. Right? Is it disseminated to everybody? Has it gone to everybody?
Yes, sir, we are sharing the link in the chat.
Sure. Okay, so the whole concept or the whole idea is about trying to use the power of technology, to personalize communication, personalize any bit of communication or commerce to the last mile. So from whoever you've heard so far, I think the way world is moving towards across sectors, across businesses, each one of the brand custodians is now looking at how they can personalize communication, how they can personalize commerce to ensure that each and every person, each and every consumer has relevance, finds relevance to the communication, and indulges in the brand and indulges in what the brand would want the consumer to do, what the CTA could be, what the call to action could be, right? So from that context, across sectors, Harsh, I mean, your question was how do we see brands behaving, or what changes we've observed in the last 18 to 24 months? I think there's a huge convergence we see, a huge convergence of people trying to personalize and talk individually to each of the consumers. I think that's the core of what digital is going to get to, right? So if Cadbury's can reach out to that local Kirana store and get and create a personalized communication for a local Kirana store, imagine what every other brand could do, right? It was very heartening to know that in the heartlands of India, in the agri products that Gaurav handles, also there is a clear a clear advantage that one notices in terms of getting people to build in the credibility and the influence through the influencers that are available in the rural markets, right? Now these are things that we've not experienced in the past. 10 years from now, there were pieces that were developing concurrently in their own silos, right? So there is this entire thing about social media, this entire thing about digital, right? For marketeers, 5, 7 years, hitherto, they were looking at it as 2 or 3 different streams. They were looking at how do we build, footprint of a brand on a digital platform, right? And therefore, they emerged these small teams that we called during that time called digital marketing, right? Now, are we in a situation today as any specific brand owners or brand custodians to actually say the digital marketing team is separate from a mainstream marketing team? I don't think so, right? Now, as I look at it, everybody today, has to, make peace with the fact that digital is mainstream, right? Uh, Anything which is content to commerce is where the world is going to, right? The other convergence that we talk about and that we see very, very closely, and that's the vertical that I represent, is this whole thing about content to commerce, right? So you're not creating content pieces, to standalone, to do standalone communications anymore, right? Every piece of content that comes out from a brand should lead a story, right? Either it is pushing the database storytelling, which leads to a commerce, or it is building credibility by virtue of having influencers push and talk about experience of the product and the brand, which again leads to commerce, right? This entire thing about how do we make the brands, do this entire journey or the entire life cycle or the customer journey across their entire usage would really form the mainstream narrative. And that has been the mainstream narrative for the last 18 months, right? So let's put it as 2 different buckets, right? I would like to, kind of, offer what brands are doing and what I make out of it as to 2 different buckets. One is in terms of communication, right? How has communication changed of all the brands in the last 18 months, right? There's no longer this entire concept of communicating for the larger audience and a heterogeneous cohort of your consumers, right? Communication we see has become a lot more personalized, right? Which technically means that if there is a show that's getting launched on Z5, the way they communicate to me would be different from the way they communicate to a Gen Z, right? The streams and the communication channels that they use would be different. So what does it do for all of you who's graduating from B school and getting into the business of managing brands? What it means is that there has to be a whole lot of personalization in the communication space that you would have to do individually for all the cohorts or for all the demographics of your consumers, right? Start from the context, build the communication tool, which brings you the affinity, build in and push the influencers who actually push the credibility further, who create the awareness, who create the influence, and who give the affinity towards your brand. And eventually, as a brand, what is the competitive advantage that you're building for your own brand? That's on the communication space. The second part, of course, is on the commerce space, right? So you started off with B2B, B2C, B2B, B2B2C, and then you said D2C, and now you're talking about C2C, and you're looking at a huge convergence out there. So there's no longer one fit that you can actually say a brand would focus on. Each brand would individually will have to evolve itself and to get to a point where it communicates and leads the commerce across multiple streams and across multiple platforms, right? So, a QR code, for example, is a case study that you would have learned when you talked about UPI and how UPI completely transformed the way India transacts, right? So we were a cash economy, as we were called, right? So there was a whole lot of cash and cash transactions that happened across multiple sectors, kirana stores to the traders to agri products. It was all in cash. Now the amount of cash transactions in India are dramatically reducing. There's a whole lot of transactions that are happening virtually, right? And that has happened that's happened over the past 3-4 years, right? So the entire piece about commerce in terms of how do you build, this omni-channel that Harsh represents, how do you build communication, and how do you build, the entire ecosystem of converting communication to commerce is what we see as a single leading, narrative across all the brands which are operational in India, irrespective of what category, irrespective of whether you identify yourself to be a D2C brand or whether you identify yourself to be a B2B brand, right? Or a very traditional, brand. Each of you as a brand will have to, as a brand custodians going forward, right, would have to be cognizant of the fact that there is a huge amount of technology convergence that is happening in communication and in commerce. And that would be your reality when you start your careers outside of the visa. Over to you, Harsh.
That's deeply enriching, Satyanarayan. I think, as you rightly put in, across the industry, content is getting increasingly personalized. I think the straight-jacketed approach of advertising is getting completely disrupted. Whether it is using longer formats, shorter formats, or content which is more personalized even over platforms, is basically leading the way. And to this, I think one of the learnings that would be really helpful to share here is at the start of the pandemic at Spencer's Retail, and typically you see the grocery market getting very hyper competitive like never before, and specifically in last 18 months. Right from promises of 10 minutes delivery, now quick commerce, which is the next big thing, to a whole lot of, for the first time, we saw the difference between industry getting characterized as essential and non-essential. So I think that's a huge change. So at the start of the pandemic, we picked up a breakthrough insight, essentially looking at senior citizens and a lot of even millennials alike, saying that they might not be really comfortable ordering grocery, which is fruits and vegetables, on an Amazon Craigslist kind of format, which is endless catalogs, right? It's really uncomfortable. Think about the previous generation. And then the question came that how do you get this audience adopted, specifically when things are moving in the essential space towards more digital platforms. While the native app and web was there, we looked at WhatsApp, which had one of the most highest adoption for senior citizens, like 400 millions there. And if you look back home, everybody in the family is forwarding messages over WhatsApp. It's so hugely adopted, if not adopted to other apps. So we made a conversational AI product called Spencer's Grocery Assistant, which allows just to put a text message as you're talking of what you want, or just like you're talking to a friend, uses AI to convert it to a normal order and ships in 2 hours to the doorstep. So I think this is another example of how even technology and convergence is coming towards getting newer models and more niche towards commerce side also. So that's just one example to what Satyanarayan said. I think because as we move forward, we'll see disruption not happening within the core industries, but there are newer business models that we would see that will come up across industries. So whether it is the usual couple of years before the usual cab business being disrupted by on-demand for it, Ubers, etc. of the world. Now, even smaller categories like even Gillette, which used to be the biggest use, is now getting disrupted with a subscription model over with Dollar Shave Club, etc. Bombay Shaving Company is a great example. So increasingly, I think what I see as a great learning is business models are being carved out against niche of consumer demographics. The business models themselves are personalized to solve a particular convenience and give enhanced degree of personalization across the consumer journey. And that's where technology is pushing the frontiers consistently. I think a great learning. A quick roundup will just go across all the panelists before we open the round for questionnaires to make it more interactive with the students. So starting with Gaurav, I think Seat has been one of the most renowned brands, and Tire is being one of the consumer journeys which not everybody prefers, right, as a regular consumer. Now, when you look at it as a seasoned business marketer and see it, and of course the tire industry, how do you see the next 3-4 years changing for this, and how do you think technology will disrupt it?
No, Harsh, as you rightly said, tires, it doesn't follow a normal purchase journey. It's more of a grudge purchase for practically all of us, and more so for, say, a farmer, wherein it's a high value product, and if the tire fails, he can lose his productivity for till the time the tire is replaced. Now, what has happened in the farming spaces, the changes happen very slowly. The purchase process, the way it is very well ingrained. The pandemic has made the, as I said, the information gathering process, and maybe the process of the influencers, which was typically used to be physical influencers, that has now become, they've also included digital influencers to that fold. But I see the overall process, the final buying process remaining the same, because it's it's a dissonance reducing process for the customer. It's a high value dissonance reducing process for the customer. And typically what happens is a farmer, when he goes, he doesn't go alone. He takes 4 farmers along, so that when he has some dissonance, okay, do you think this is the right purchase I'm making? So that's the way the purchase process has been for last 20-30 years. So my hunch is certain parts, and I'm specifically talking about the rural market, certain parts like information gathering and influencer play, and some part of agri input buying might stay to the digital way, but the high value items, the purchase of value items like tires, that might move to the normal way once the pandemic subsides. So that's my hunch.
Perfect, Gaurav. Sushant, now a lot of action there in the evolved consumption patterns of the ever evolving Indian audience. How do you see not just FMCG as a larger industry, but newer things that would keep shaping up, and newer models that we would see right from D2C and new brands coming in next 2-3 years? How do you see it going forward?
Yeah, so I would say uh, overall, what will obviously happen is a lot of organizations will adopt to, I mean, phygital technology now. It's not going to be any longer just physical or just digital, right? So I see that going forward with all the cases of, as you've been talking about, the buy online and pick up on the curbside pickup, the endless aisle, the quick commerce. I think all these things will get adopted. All these technologies will start getting adopted with most of the organizations. If I talk about FMCG, definitely they will pick it up, and they have already started that journey, especially once the lockdown came in, right? And it is all going to be about how quickly, right? It's all about going to be speed. So compared to conventional retail outlet, quick commerce companies will be able to get goods to customers in a fraction of time. There's going to be guaranteed availability of curated, relevant products, 24-hour operation. So all of these trends are going to happen in future. Phygital information and access will be further enhanced. So ultimately, it will be all about exploring many different ways and locations to better connect with customers and expand opportunities for brands that lead potential customers towards a purchase. So I think this is how I feel all the organizations will have to start adopting and picking up. And especially if I talk about Amway itself, we've been at the forefront. We've been adopting to the transformation from the physical to online stores. The manufacturing setup is getting even more. So we have a manufacturing setup which is there in Madurai. So it's getting more and more evolved with a lot of physical, I would say, experiences being developed for consumers as well, so that they can observe what is happening. So making more physical into digital transformation is something I would say that we've been continuously working, and in future we will further enhance that. So I think broadly this is what I think is going to happen.
Great, Sushant. I think the way the entire durables and FMCG space is going through change and revamp, I think it's all the power coming back to the consumer. Much more discoverability of products to the consumers in current day and age. I think with quick commerce making the availability and also the delivery at last mile within minutes. I think we are looking at the entire value chain being shrunk much more, and giving a very heightened convenience to consumers. So a lot of action, I think, to me, the entire retail and the way consumption cycle goes on, there is much more that we have to witness as consumers and as industry. Krunal, I think on the content side, the way we've seen the democratization of content creation, I think now every Gen Z is a sort of influencer in its own right. How content is also getting consumed and newer commerce models being made, whether it is OTT or otherwise. How do you see now when you see it from the OTT perspective and especially from Z5? How do you see this panning out for next 3-5 years, even from a consumer standpoint?
So I think, like what you mentioned, right? Today, I think brands are exploring how do I give more to the consumer, right? Because I have the consumer now on my platform. So if you look at Z5 or Z overall, right? Uh, we obviously have consumers on our television platform through the channels that we provide, right? Now there is Z5, so there is a digital platform. We've recently launched a platform of Hippie, which is going to compete with the likes of Chingari and everyone, right? It is again a UGC content platform, and essentially the idea is, from a brand perspective, wherever the audience is, we want to be present, right? And the next leg of all of this is how do you leverage resources from one to other, which is using content, which is using the UGC content and bringing in the factor of transactions and commerce, right? And that's where it's at. Uh, from I think one of the biggest trend that you've seen over the past few years, and I think it sort of became big, is the influencer-led, trend. And I think and one of the biggest drivers of that, and earlier there were brands, right? So all the actors and television actors or Bollywood actors, they were the brand ambassadors. Now you don't really call them ambassadors, you call them influencers, because even to post one post on an Instagram, a star charges you an X amount, right? And they are happy to associate on a very transactional level. That is also a space that Z is working on, because we also have a lot of talent, right? And they are the guys who drive consumption. They are the guys who drive trends, especially with regards to fashion, with regards to adoption of any new category, with regards to lifestyle. So I think that is also something that a lot of brands will tap into, which is using influencers to drive consumption and to drive transactions as well. So I think that is where we are moving towards, where the idea is to exploit the audiences or the data that we already have on the platform because of COVID, the surge that we have seen, and how do I utilize that and give the consumers more, right, in terms of not just content to consume, but engage with them, and also at the same time look at opportunities where transactions can be generated for getting in more revenue.
Great, Kunal. I think I can only imagine. I think with uh, uh, technologies like blockchain also disrupting a whole lot of industries, including fintech. I think what we are yet to see is the complete disruption of the value chain within media and advertising consumption, where I think as Satyanarayan said, in a true C2C fashion, advertisers would be able to send ads directly to the consumers on a one-on-one personalization level. I think even the content creation would change. So I think a lot that we would see there. Satyanarayan, now when you see all of this, let's see from a durables perspective, when we look at C8 and how Gaurav talked about how the entire agri pharma value chain is getting disrupted with newer apps, the way they consume information, where they buy agricultural inputs and even interact, and how the FMCG space is also from a D2C standpoint, newer forms of communication coming back of the pack, QR codes, and more personalization there, and complete way of changing the three C's of content, community, and commerce. Now, as a large one of the leading media houses now. When you see Satyanarayan, how do you see this landscape now, and specifically from student standpoint, that what are the things that they would need to pick up in order to be really at it in next 2 3 years, whether it is in terms of skill sets or how the demands of the industry, even in media and advertising, is changing.
Right. So honestly, some portions of it I know, some portions of it we're all learning together, right? So I think the first thing which, if I were to look at when we started as marketeers to what they do once they get out of the B school and once they start handling jobs, I think the first relevant skill that I think each one should necessarily have is in terms of the data interpretation. Handling lots of data is probably the most important uh, skill set that would differentiate people, because again, there was in the way organizations were structured earlier. So you had a team which was handling data, which is either marketing analytics team, or you had the research team, as they used to be called in the erstwhile FMCG parlance, right? They're getting integrated with mainstream marketing, right? It's all about looking at the data, looking at where your consumer rests, what the consumer behavior is, what the consumer journey is, and looking at how do you then make a relevance, for the brand that you're going to handle, right? Now, everything starting from the way we've handled events to what they're going to do in terms of events, the way the previous generation looked at media and looking at media for communication and to creating call for action is going to change to what they're going to happen, what they're going to see once they start handling the brands. So I think as students, I think it's important for each one of you to absorb every single trend that's happening, because it's a tectonic shift that's happening right now, right? And the important piece is all of it is moving for the better. You would find that a whole lot of brands and a whole lot of people who don't adapt themselves fast enough would probably be losing out big time in this game, right? So starting from content that needs to be personalized, to commerce that needs to be personalized, to communication that needs to be personalized, right? We talked about, we saw a trend in the last 18 months or so, in the last 24 months. There are brands who would want us to get celebrities like the film stars to push the communication, as influencers. Now, at the other end of the spectrum are the more evolved ones, like say HUL, which is talking about who are the rural influencers in the eastern part of Uttar Pradesh, which is media dark, right? Who can push their products which are specific to a specific category, right? So, if you look at it, it depends on what part of the funnel the company that you represent is in, right? The journey across the funnel is an interesting journey, right? You would see a huge convergence that is happening, and I'm sorry, at the cost of repeating myself, I'll have to say there's a huge convergence happening of technology and of all the platforms that you see, which started with an objective of being different. Facebook never thought it would get into that level of data crunching, right? Now, what is Facebook talking about today? They're talking about a metaverse. They're talking about getting into AR, VR, right? Not because they would want to see, not for the heck of it, but they see that the next round of engagement or the next level of engagement that they can do with consumers is going to happen at the back of AR, VR, right? Now you would see a whole lot of AR, VR coming in. You would see a whole lot of voice coming in, right? We're working as we speak right now on some voice-based products, which can actually reach out, which can help brands reach out to media dark and markets where you probably have a challenge with the literacy, right? Where we're talking about how do we integrate voice in the communication? Can we actually do the search in voice, like what Harsh said about what app they developed for for the category that they were talking about, for reaching out to, the elderly people, right? If the communication could be through the voice, right? It would then enable the brands work a lot better, would enable the brands communicate a whole lot better. So there's a there's a whole lot of convergence happening at this point of time of data, of technology, And that would drive the communication, and that would drive how the brands get built in the next 5, 7 years. I don't think anybody in this panel has any view of any concrete prediction of what would happen beyond 5 years. But this is what is going to happen in 5 years, right? And this is what you better be prepared as you get out of the B school, because you would no longer be you would no longer be able to advance in your careers if you say that I don't understand as much of data, or I don't understand as much of say an influencer commerce or social commerce, because it is expected that each one of you who graduate today would have these skills as you leave the campuses. That way we lucked out, I must say. I think we all picked it up on the curve. We all picked it up on the jobs. So we did not have so much of expectations as we left the B schools. But you would probably have to have all these skills. Over to you, Ash.
Great, Satya. I think, as you rightly put, very heightened focus on consumer centricity at the top. I think as brands, as marketers, as business leaders, consumer centricity is at the top, which is for sure leveraging the convergence of being data driven, much more disruption through technology. And I think the agility that we've seen within brands, even to pivot their core business models, I think those are the key things that I see myself shaping up as we go forth. Great. I think one example I wanted to share, which is essentially how the future is moving towards connected consumer experiences. And there is this example of one of the professors at New York University who wanted to experience a Tesla car. And he didn't want to buy, he wanted to experience it. So he wanted to rent it, found it very difficult. Ultimately found a website called Turo.com, and he ultimately rented it. He went to a grocery store, parked in his porch, and went inside his home. And he was very worriedly came a couple of hours out and saw that a big truck was there, parked besides the Tesla, like a worried look where you have a liability of a rented thing, and then the guy was changing the tire. So essentially, Tesla had a connected consumer experience where it could detect when the tire needed to change, and it did a replacement there. So I think that's one example, and how even as Satya said, and we've learned from what Sushant said, how QR code is being used, or Krunal's various learnings that he shared around content and how it is getting personalized across. So a whole lot of change there. Equal exciting times for all of us to learn. Let me just open up the session to questions and make it more interactive from students. Please feel free to either put in a question in the chat window, or you could rather just unmute yourself and ask your question directly. Over to you. Sonali, Anshul, I think
Yes, sir.
we may request
Students
them
who have,
just put it on the chat window also.
sure,
Or
sir.
just raise your hand if that helps.
Any students who have questions, kindly raise your hands.
Anshul, I think it's not visible. May I go ahead and ask my question?
Yes, sir.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so Satya sir, you mentioned that digitality demands data analytics as a skill. So sir, maybe you can let us know about a few more skills that we can prepare ourselves with, since we'll be graduating soon, and some skills that we can prep ourselves with before we enter the corporate world to combat this digital mode of business.
Well, so let me put it this way. So this entire piece about, see, what's it that each one of you. So I'll say that even that would be personalized to each one of you, right? So each one of you comes with a different background. Each one of you has entered the B school with a different experience in terms of your acads. right? Some of you would have done commerce, some of you would have done economics, some of you would have done engineering, some of you would have done some other course before you got into the school, right? It's important for you to then identify and leverage what are your strengths, right? Now, the things that would come to you and would hit you once you hit the ground is about your ability to make meaningful insights out of the data that rests, right? Today, there's no brand which doesn't collect data, right? Starting from social platforms to consumer touch points, there's data that's sitting everywhere. The challenge that brands have today is to make meaningful insights of the data that has got aggregated, right? Now, that's one portion where people who come with this, the bright students like you who come out of the campuses like IIM can make a difference to brands, right? Can you make meaningful and actionable insights, can you come out with actionable insights from the data that's already existing, right? So therefore, that would probably require some of you to hone up your skills around data analytics, right? How good are you in Excel for starters? How good are you in any of the big data, tools? Can you are you familiar with R? Are you familiar with any of the other programming languages that could help, right? That opens up a specific set or stream of opportunities for you. The second set of opportunities that I can think of at this point of time is in terms of your ability to crunch the data that is available and create communication, right? Because eventually I will not be able to specify and put a prescription here saying these are the 10 courses or these are the 10 languages that you need to learn. I think it's the ability to pick up data pieces that are resting in different touch points and creating meaningful insights out of it for for leading the commerce or leading the communication for the brands that you would handle. That would make the critical differentiator for each one of you as you enter the careers. So it could be a bit of language. It could be a bit of technology that you would need to learn. It could be a whole lot of reading that you might need to have, and an information or insights that you need to have with respect to what's happening, for example, in quick commerce or live commerce, as we call it. Different terminology that gets that people use, interchangeably these days, right? But then this is the reality. There are, as you enter, so you probably have read already about how in China, for example, goods worth $5 billion and upwards are getting sold merely through live commerce, right? Now, what do you do? What are the enablers to make it happen? What are the ecosystem that one needs to build around the brand or the category that one enters to make something like that happen? Now, these are not specifically one single course related or technology related skill sets, but these to me are an amalgamation of a whole lot of learning that you need to do, a whole lot of courses that you probably would need to do to enable you to make those decisions and putting it across as a that's, I think, the critical thing that you would see as a constant all through your careers. I'll not say this is something which you will pick up in the school and then you go out and then that you might not have to kind of relearn or unlearn. That's something which you need to do constantly. So I don't know if I've addressed your query adequately, but that's what I can think of.
No, sir. Absolutely. It's a holistic approach we should adopt. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Satya. I think our next question is by Harneet Singh, and he asks, do you think our going back to physical space is when once will disrupt marketing strategies, specifically for new age startups who saw a boom during the COVID era? So maybe I can take that up, Harneet, and then somebody can add on to it. So I think the way we have seen and in the retail, it's almost a semi-permanent shift, which means let me tell you from not just perspective of Spencer's Retail and Nature's Basket, companies which were 4.5% omni-channel has seen a peak of as high as 30 to 38% omni-channel during COVID, but it still remains to be 20-25% upside on those channels. So I think that there's a deeper shift that we've seen in COVID, not that it would be a binary shift where consumers will completely move back to physical. I think within last 14-18 months, how consumers have also evolved and brands have also evolved together towards a deeper convergence into leveraging technology and digital across the value chain, whether it is in terms of discoverability or the ordering stage itself, or even within the value chain of disrupting and better efficiencies for technology and supply chain or the last mile delivery itself. So across, I think there is a shift that we're seeing, which is semi-permanent, which is going to stay there. And I think uh, from an industry standpoint, it is opening up huge opportunities even to open up markets which were otherwise inaccessible in any form. Like Satya said, there were geographies which were media dark, and that's where you are now getting opportunity to reach through much more evolved forms of media. Similarly, there were geographies which were underserved, or there were catchments which were not served to the hilt. So I think there's a semi-permanent change, and more from a consumer standpoint also. What we see, yes, we'll see as it evolves, but what we see now is yes, it's more of a semi-permanent shift. Consumers are not completely shifting to physical, and there is a strong move towards ordering either online or on-demand ordering and faster delivery kind of system. So that is something that continues to be there. We'll move on to the next question, Yogi, which Yogi Raval asks is how technology aids in creating innovative marketing, what to expect from future of marketing, branding, advertising. Sushant, Krunal, Gaurav, anybody wants to take that up?
So maybe I'll go first. So I guess something as simple as doing a digital launch of product. I mean, so we had a product launch last year where, of course, it was peak pandemic time, but we wanted to launch this product, and we did a digital launch, and this was really liked and gave us the reach. So just a very simple example of how technology can help us reach a wider audience. Some parts of technology will continue to remain and will drive further engagement with the customer. However, I think I would want to highlight some things over here. One is that customization is the buzzword, and we should definitely customize our offerings, our communication towards the customer. But let's also be mindful that we don't get too intrusive, because once we start getting intrusive, then it can irritate the customer. And also it's important then when we are developing these apps or these portals to engage with or to drive the digital adoption of the customer. The UI UX should be very clean. The customer should be able to navigate very easily. And I will just talk about a personal example. I'm not telling which brand it was. So it was a financial brand, so to say. And I always, when I used to access the app, this screen used to pop up, which more often than not I used to ended up clicking, and which was for a credit card, a free credit card, which was on offer. And I was trying to close that window, but by default, sometimes since it used to pop up every time whenever I went into the app, they thought I want that particular card, and they ended up calling me. They practically hounded me for a long time. And I tell the guy, I mean, of course, he was a third-party guy, that how this actually is irritating me as a customer. So I think these are some things which when you as future marketers, when you get into your respective company, start working, these are the things you need to take care of.
Great, Gaurav. The next question I think is from Vaibhav Mishra, and he talks about how AR and augmented reality and when we can see that in physical stores. So a lot of examples there. I think the entire space is evolving, Vaibhav. If you look at East, there's a complete model called the Homa stores, which has been started by Alibaba. some odd 64 stores which are cashless stores, where essentially it's a cashless, not just a cashless checkout, but you just scan and you pick up products in a virtual basket, and you also see a very involved journey of looking at ingredients, features of the products, and while you reach home, it gets delivered within 30 minutes. So a lot of these value chains within retail are getting involved, experimented and piloted. However, as we see, it's more of a case of the larger efficiencies and a more scalable way of looking at these emerging technologies. So a lot of these, like even virtual reality or AR, are finding their applications within the hype cycle in various segments of the industry. Some of them are maturing. Some of them are yet to find their applications. Like virtual reality is finding much more better applications in biomedical and telemedicine, including augmented reality than other ones. So we're yet to see more of its application in education also. So that's about it. Next question is Harneet. Harneet has a specific question on e-learning and how certificate courses have gone exponential, right, from the Coursera's of the world. I would even look at a White Hat Junior, an academy, and more so of these. And people, consumers who have invested a lot of time during COVID upskilling, do we think that we'll see a decline there? Krunal, maybe you want to take up, and if you see a great analogy with the rise in OTT there.
Yeah, so I think one of the see from an upskilling perspective, I think what I think Satya also sort of discussed in the passing was, in terms of how students need to upskill, how digital is important, how data is important, right? If we look at just our industry, right, OTT, there is so much of data, right? Right from us targeting consumers with Google, Facebook, Amazon, so many platforms, right? There is customization. They collect so much of data. There is geo targeting. There is dynamic search targeting, where essentially you just feed in your creative, your copies. The machine learning will basically do its job, right? Because it churns data. So I think there is so much, I would say, understanding that is required, right, right now, and across industries, not just in OTT, not just in a digital first, but even, say, a retail, right, or any other physical led industry. I think there is requirement for skill which can understand the data, take insights, and then put it back into the business, right? So definitely, I think that is also the reason why a lot of people have taken up these courses, right? So if you, I don't know what is the data, but I'm sure that a large part of these courses that have been taken up are targeted towards digital courses, because that is what everyone wants to skill up on, right? So I think the uptake is going to be there, and it is going to grow. It's an industry which has just picked up, and I think they're doing quite well. Whether it will help us, for sure. I mean, see, again, uh, every industry requires people who can bring in a perspective on digital marketing, who can bring in a perspective of data analytics. There are now teams. So we have a huge team of data analytics and data scientists, how we call it, right? Because marketing and business decisions are now taken basis data. It is not now based on gut feeling where you feel that it's going to grow and it's going to happen. No, you need to look at data, you need to look at trends, you need to look at insights, and basis that take decisions to essentially uh, uh, which will impact the business in a larger way. So I think very important, and I think as students who are just coming out of the business, school, and entering a market where one, there are already experienced people who are taking up these courses, and are upskilling themselves. I think you guys also need to look at certain digital courses which will help you, right? And it's very basic. You should just go and do Google courses. They are all free. You don't have to pay anything, right? And Google is the mainstream digital uh, first medium that any marketer takes to sort of push marketing. And these are very basic concepts that they help you. So I think that is a good starting point for all the students to just go access these Google learning courses, Facebook learning courses, which are all available for free.
Absolutely, Pranav. So I think both on the aspect of democratization in the sheer way that educational courses are getting imparted. I think you must have seen it's not just the platforms which have moved upwards in terms of their entire value proposition, but major universities across the globe are taking the e-learning route in also solving for two essential goals there. One is the way and the agility in which the entire industry is transforming. Like Ronald mentioned, a lot of skills like performance marketing, optimization of digital media, whether it is SEO, SEM, or specific things, even which now the not just the academia but also the industry is picking up. Like there are specific courses for targeted at MSMEs, uh, which educates or imparts traders and retailers how do they digitize their shops, right? And those programs which allow them to know little basics of about Google advertising, etc. All of that is coming up. All in all, I see my sense is that the e-learning part is massively growing, and there is a whole lot of opportunity. I think it also shrinks the core value chain of the entire industry in which education operates, brings much more better unit economics, gives much more bigger scale to how the entire distribution happens. So I think there is much more that we'll continue to see on the e-learning side also. Anirban has another question. What is the future of brick and mortar stores with the rise in e-commerce? Is it going to erode in near future, or will there be an amalgamation of both? Uh, Maybe Sushant, Gaurav, Satya, yeah. How do you see, and it's a perfect piece on the binary story of physical versus digital. Is
Yeah,
there
so
a
probably I'll go first.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Sushant.
Yeah, so I would say the noise and vibes of feeling, I mean, has been there, but I think no matter how much we've loved our hassle-free online experience, many customers are happy to be loaded with bags, engaging directly with the sales assistant, and really thrill of, for example, trying new clothes and everything, right? So the initial rush to the brick and mortar stores will fall away to more consistent and I would say sustainable levels as customers aren't about to turn their backs on the convenience of retail online anytime soon, right? So now retailers have been forced actually to focus on how to better connect and engage with their customers across channels moving forward, right? And this means innovating in terms of how do you turn browsers or in our language, the window shoppers into buyers and improving communications with customers to stay specifically on top of mind, right? So and clearly, a lot of retailers now look to do whatever it takes to keep customers happy. Brands are taking customer experience to another level everywhere, and some retailers are in fact also looking at appointment bookings, extended hours on store by store basis, tailored to local shopping trends, and removing unnecessary shopping steps that better serve their customers. So if a customer finds the product they want in a fitting room, for example, why do they need to queue up? And when they could buy it from their phone just by a few clicks, which is any which way is more smarter and even safer for that matter. So removing traditional pain points from the in-store experience, like struggling to find a particular product in a store or the right product size, the complexities of click and collect. So not getting assistance from fast enough from anyone, I would say, right? So I would say it is particularly important now when it comes to retail operators that where consumers will expect to receive same convenience and engagement with the brand, regardless of how, when, and where they want to shop. So, and shops will become more and more, will become not just about shopping destination, because it is going to be even more, I would say, it's going to be not only completely online, it is going to be more experiential. It won't be just around discounts and window displays. It is going to be more around how do you give better customer experience, how do you tap into emotion, into connectivity, discoverability, and how do you create communities as well. So I think it's going to be an amalgamation of both online and offline world, and people will start embracing it even more, and more connected experience is something that will come up in future. So I think broadly this is what I feel will happen in future.
So, Harsh, I would just want to add to what Sushant said. So, I think omni-channel strategy is something which every brand will have to employ or deploy. And I'll just give some examples, something which I've personally experienced, and few examples which I've read. So, there's a recent example where I wanted to buy this footwear, and I went to the store after good 1 year. I went to that particular store, and I really liked that shoe, but it was not available in my size. So what he said was, sir, you can just check. We have that app which had, I mean, the close by stores were there, and you can check if it's there, and if it's available, you can place the order right away, and it will be delivered to your home. So a great example of omni-channel strategy. But it would also mean is that, and this is my hunch, that slowly and steadily the amount of real estate space which the brands take, that will shrink. So something like which is happening more in the QSR industry. So what these brands are doing is that they're reducing the amount of space they are taking, the physical space, because they know that because of this entire the digital thing which is coming to be, people are more comfortable ordering at home. And though the store walk-ins will happen, maybe it might reach, my hunch is it might not reach a normal level, and hence the brands are doing shrinking the real estate space and using their restaurants as more of pickup or delivery points. So that's the change I see happening.
Absolutely, very rightly put, Gaurav. Sushant. So I think the convergence is happening at both ends. While there is a whole lot of adoption, whether it is to reduce the checkout timings, whether it is the examples of endless aisles or book online, pick up in store, or if you don't find anything, you order within the store, gets delivered at your home. So different applications leveraging technology which are solving specific use cases. And on the other hand, even on the pure play e-commerce companies are leveraging much more of augmented reality, especially in beauty space, brands like L'Oreal, etc., for virtual trials in fashion space also to get and bridge for the physical experience not there. So there is convergence happening at both sides, which will continue to happen. We'll continue to find multiple applications. In fact, to the extent that even if you go to a Kirana store now, one of the things, the biggest change that you'll see a decade before and now, that he will ask you whether you want to do a Paytm or not. So I think whether it is in form of even isolated cases of solving either for checkout or payments or discoverability, there are multiple use cases there. And more so, there's a whole bunch of new e-commerce companies coming in, or new age companies coming in, solving specifically for O2O, which is allowing physical merchants and retailers to digitize their shops, the likes of DotPay, etc. So and even Google, Facebook are trying to do that on a much larger scale. So that's also the big trend that we're seeing towards digitization of normal kirana or the large part of undisrupted retail. So that's about it. I think we've had a great session. We're close 2 minutes to our prescribed time of 12:40. Over to you, Sonali and Anshul. Thanks a lot for this discussion. Over to you to conclude the same.
Thank you, sir, for such an enriching discussion. So it was really valuable and very knowledgeable. So now I would like to invite Sushant, sir, for the keynote speech.
Oh, you're starting it right away. I thought we'll have a break. All right. Okay. So first, I just want to check whether to leave the event. No, whether the video is actually working or not, because I wanted to share a couple of videos in my presentation. So I don't have the ability to share content. Can you just enable that?
Yes, sir, we will give you the host right. Sharon, can you do that?
Sir, I have made you presenter. You can present.
Yeah, I also want to check whether the sound will be there when I share. Is there a way to share the sound, or let me just first see whether it's getting shared or not. This, and then we just play one video first. Start off. Let me know if you can hear the sound. Can you hear the sound of the video I am playing?
No, sir.
No? So there would be some, I think, just hang on, let me try it out. Share, including video. I think similar kind of issue I think happened while Satya, I think, was trying to share his video. Or should we start? What do we do?
So you can start. I think we'll work on it.
All right. Yeah, so the idea of me presenting today is obviously we want to go a step further and understand a little bit more around what exactly is augmenting digital visibility all about and the new approach to marketing. So before I do that, so the clear agenda that I want to drive is first we'll get a little deeper into what is digital, why does it matter, what can we achieve with digital, and then the key highlights and what are the ingredients for success for this, right? So I wanted to play this video, and probably you'll get a sense within this video how exactly digital is going to transform the entire piece. I would have loved to have the sound also of this, but
Sir, 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 am I audible?
Yes, Shaleen, you are audible.
the video is audible.
Sir,
Can you hear the video sound?
there should be an option like sharing computer audio. You have to tick mark that.
Where would that be? More options, view video settings. Huh?
Yes, sir. Somewhere around there only.
Hello, sorry to interrupt,
Yeah.
Shaleen.
Yeah.
You'll get that option when you start sharing your content. So when you first start
Okay,
sharing
I
your
am sharing
content,
that.
you
That
can,
generally that's what happens when you do it with any other. But I
yes.
don't see.
Now when you start, I mean, when you try again to share, there will be a audio, I mean, tick box on the top right corner that will say share your audio, computer audio.
Fortunately, I'm not able to find. अच्छा, यहाँ पे check. I think let's not waste time because I tried it. Right में कुछ आ ही नहीं रहा. There's window, there's file, and there's whiteboard. Actually, beyond that, I don't see anything coming up. And there are screens that come in.
That in the screen where you see multiple screens, that's very good.
नहीं आ रहा है यार क्या किया जाए टॉप राइट कॉर्नर में कुछ नहीं आ रहा है there is just all these screens are just coming in. Leave it. I think you'll get a sense with this. I mean, that I'll probably verbalize what is happening to make it easier for you guys, right? So as we told, it's an amalgamation of physical and digital. So this is exactly how you can imagine your future coming into place. So like how you can log in on Facebook, you take a photograph of yourself, post it on Facebook, and you can get some comments whether you should buy it or not. So right, you can visualize yourself walking around. How it's more relevant from a auto industry as well, from beauty industry as well, where you can actually see yourself while trying different things, right? If you want to try a nail paint on your finger, you can put your hand inside the kiosk and you can select which color I want to take, right? So this is the entire piece on how do you bring both the worlds together, right? All the gaming of AR and VR. Right. All right, so I'll move forward. So this basically gives you a sense of what exactly is physical and digital. So imagine yourself. So one scenario is where you can think of, right, you're waiting for the train on your way to work. You've got a long day ahead and don't feel like swinging by the grocery store afterward, right? Fortunately, there's a supermarket kiosk on the platform. You can scan your barcode on your phone and arrange for food to be delivered when you get home, right? This is an example of the phygital world that will come in. Another example you can probably imagine is when, as you cross the street to your office building, the strap of your computer bag finally breaks. You don't have time to run out and get a new one, but that's okay. Once you're in your office, you log on to your company's website, put on the augmented reality headset, and virtually try a different bag and buy it right away, right? Another scenario could be at lunch, you head down to your usual restaurant. The AI in the touchscreen kiosk suggests sandwiches you might like based on your order history. Then uses facial recognition to complete the order and charge your account. So these are some of the very practical scenarios that definitely will start happening in future. It's already started to happen in a couple of countries in US, China. They are very much more evolved right now from a phygital standpoint, I think. So clearly, as we've been talking about, what is phygital? So it's a match made in heaven. So it's the interplay between physical and digital environments. And phygital is I would say it's the newest name for a very old trick that we've been talking about in marketing, which is around experiential marketing, right? And if you see, right, Apple hasn't moved on from providing physical experiences, right? So they still have their stores because there is an aspect of tangible aspects that people want to go and experience certain products, which probably increase the engagement, increases the interest, provides a more holistic experience, and then eventually it leads to sale, right? So people walking in the store and actually experiencing things is something that definitely as a consumer you would want, right? And another big example is Amazon, which in fact they are moving backwards. They were online and now they have offline stores as well, which is Amazon Go. So here again, I had made a video which will give you a sense of what exactly I'm talking about. Would have been great to hear the sound, but yeah, you can see how the experience will be, right? You pick up a burger or whatever, move out of the store, and immediately you can actually experience. You can do a checkout. You don't need to get into a queue. You pick up your stuff, move out. It automatically it automatically cuts the amount from your Amazon account itself, right? How you can enter the store, you just need to open a QR code, scan it, you can enter inside the store, right? You pick up a stock. There's a automated computer program which is there, which can actually see that when you pick up it, the product moves out. If you put it back, it will move out. So it's like very uh, visually clear, and it's something that will there's a deep algorithm which is there. There's a sensor fusion which is there, right? So, and it's called the just walkout technology. So you pick up stuff, you just move out of the store. You don't have to worry about getting into a queue. Simply it charges you. Yeah, so it's clear thought is that no lines, no checkout, and it's already started in 2017-18, right? So slowly, steadily, there is already markets which have adopted this. India is also, I think, there's already a store which has come in over here. So this is the way forward where we want to get more closer to the consumer, right? Pokemon Go is another example, which was the first ever augmented reality app, right? It's a digital game in the real world, perfect blend of two environments. So just to give you a sense of what exactly we've been talking about, what Phygital is all about. Another example I wanted to showcase again in a video to give you a sense of what exactly are we talking about. So how furniture would be bought in future. So again, a very interesting video. This will give you a sense of how IKEA is integrating their ideas around Phygital, right? So I'll probably play it a little faster, skip it in between. So you can scan your phone, right? And there's a virtual table which will come in, right? You can take photographs, visualize all these products on your phone, and then decide on. So you can save all these on your phone, visualize, see a color combination, whether what color is working, play around with it. So all those things you can do, right? I'll just skip it forward just to give you a sense what happens eventually. So once you've kind of seen it, you can decide and order it online, right? So it's a perfect amalgamation where you're giving that experience to the consumer, that how you can imagine yourself rather than. So the big advantage that you have with e-commerce, with online, is the kind of assortment that is possible, right? Once earlier you had to go to a store to figure out that whether this will work or not, but then you could not visualize whether that particular assortment or that particular product how will that fit into my house, right? This is a perfect way where you're giving that experience in their house itself, and you're able to then provide that product to them immediately online, right? And it can be customized, it can be personalized further as per your requirement as well. So I think this is the future of how the furniture would also be bought, right? And as I told you, the phygital search trend, I mean, last 5 years, it's been phenomenal growth, right? It's expected to be around 18.8 billion USD by end of 2020, 78% growth in spending. So this is the kind of data that I got, right? And digital adoption is growing by 20% globally over the past year, and 4 times compound annual growth rate of what it was prior to 4 years. So clearly, what pandemic has done is it's made digital adoption and phygital a very relevant concept, and very relevant from a consumer standpoint. And COVID, as I told you, is a clear accelerator, right? Society is busy entering into the new phase. The isolation economy with a rapid increase in digital adoption is going to happen. Though physical will not disappear with real world, because human interactions are going to be remaining to be key in many scenarios. But companies need to combine the best of both worlds to provide the right mix of, and these are the 3 C's, I would say, 3 I's, I would say, which is immediacy, immersion, and interaction. So I'll come directly to that, which basically means immediacy is you are providing experience. Your experience happens at the exact moment in time. Your immersion is all about the user is actually included in the experience itself. And then when I talk about interaction, so interaction is all about the experience, how the experience activates the physical and emotional aspect of the purchasing purchasing process, right? So I would say these are the three key ingredients for success in the phygital world. How do you provide immediacy? How do you provide immersion for the consumer? And how do you provide interaction for them? And what can you achieve with phygital? You can definitely achieve seamless customer journey. You can achieve augmented retail experience. You can provide personalized offers. You can provide stronger customer engagement, right? So I've kind of written detail. I can share this trick with you to make it more clearer. But I think broadly, what we are talking about phygital is that it provides, it basically, it's now a stage where there is a huge gap which was earlier, now it's further narrowing, right? The physical and digital space is narrowing, and it's all about brands understanding, organizations understanding the narrowing of this, and how do you really take full mileage of and provide the customer the kind of experience. How do you, so that entire piece that I was talking about, that earlier in retail, what was important was what was the location that your store is, right? If it is in a prime location, it's at the right place, it's easy for the consumer to pick up. The outlet was successful, and that's very, and that was the buzzword, that location is what is important in a retail environment. But I would say over a period of time, what will slowly happen, it will not only be location, it will also be the experience that you provide to a consumer. So from a location, it will slowly transform towards experience for the consumer, right? So broadly, and then we've been talking about the technological advancements. I think these are some of the top 7, I would say, that advancements that will happen. One is the Internet of Things, and you must have been hearing about how Internet of Things provides a network of billions of physical devices communicating with each other and sharing data, right? Facial recognition is something which is going to, it's already started. It is going to further enhance at the point of sale, right? There is going to be autonomous delivery robots and store assistants, cashierless stores. So clearly, as the Amazon Go is a brilliant example, and that's what a lot of organizations will start adopting. The augmented shopping that I spoke about, right? And then there's going to be voice commerce. So voice commerce with obviously Amazon and the series of the world, all of them, right, have been providing this, and consumers are getting. And there's a huge scope of voice commerce now, right? You can research, you can compare prices, can even purchase the product just by uttering now rather than typing or going to the store. So that's going to be the future, right? And technology is going to be at the heart of all the future retail. That is going to be the AI that I'm talking about, the artificial intelligence, right? So broadly, this is what it is. And I wanted to take you through another very interesting video, which is of China's Alibaba. And this is clearly a future of retail. And again, since the voice is not there, I'll try to verbalize it slightly longer. Probably I'll skip in between just to make it a 1.5 minute video only, so that you get a sense of where exactly the retail environment, the phygital environment, is going to follow, right? So there are two ways, right? You go into the store to buy, or you buy it online, right? So lot of brick and mortar retail had to close down because of COVID, right? I think it becomes very difficult to actually talk while the video is going on. I'll probably share this video in a link just to give you a sense of what I'm talking about, right? So it's talking about all the digitization that is going to happen across all the commerce platforms, right? So earlier, the traditional retails were something like this. Over a period of time, it got transformed into even no point in playing this video. I think I'll share it with you guys. It's better to see it. I'll probably post a link of this particular video because this gives you an entire sense of the future of Phygital, right? I'll probably share a YouTube link for this. And I wanted to close my presentation with this interesting video, but I think without the sound, it does not make too much of a sense to. I'm open to any questions now. If you guys have, I'll stop sharing. Sorry for that abrupt closure. I think the video does not make sense without a sound. I'll share the video link for you guys. But yeah, open to any questions if you might have. Sonali, Anshul.
Yeah, sir, it was a great presentation. So anybody who have any question, kindly raise your hand.
I think it's almost lunch as well.
Anshul, Anirban Das has raised his hand.
Yeah, and even you can go ahead with your question.
The presentation, though there was no sound, but it was quite interesting. Am I audible?
You are not audible
Try to
properly.
be a little louder because you're audible, but it'd be great if you could do slightly.
Okay, so despite the sound not being there, but the video was quite interesting. So just I had just found out like will like all this amalgamation requires investment. So in this tough times, will the companies be willing to make the investments required for transforming their brick and mortars to the one we are expecting, we are looking forward to?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Ariman. And I would say what has happened in COVID and a lot of organizations have kind of picked it up is that all these problems, all these I would say lockdowns and all these slowdown, what it also provides is opportunities to a lot of organizations. So what happens is for a smaller organization, for someone who does not have the monies to invest, it becomes very difficult to manage their P&L to ensure the profitability is there. But for an organization which is future looking, which has a good profitability, who's looking to invest, I think the pandemic is the ideal time to invest where all the competitors are actually not investing, right? So it gives you that competitive advantage. It gives you that ability to really get into the blue ocean, right, rather than fight in the red ocean. So I think this really going forward with the phygital world and investing at a time where you are kind of moving ahead of the competition and not really fighting out where all the other competitors are there, I think is a great opportunity. And a lot of organizations who've kind of done that are reaping the benefits now. Once the pandemic is, people have gone back to the normal, are still getting back to the normal business scenario. So I think it was very important for a lot of organizations to take that in stride, probably do an investment ahead of curve, and that investment that they would have done during pandemic. And I would give you an example of ours as well, right? So we actually launched a lot of critical products during the pandemic, like a Chawanprash, like a vitamin C. And what that had done, because we launched it during that time, it got a lot of traction. We got a lot of visibility, and now we are reaping the benefits of those launches because now the consumers have adopted those products, and then you are continuously ensuring that they buy your product. So that was an investment that we did from an innovation perspective, which has given us results. So I think it's all about taking those issues as an opportunity and just providing what the consumer is looking for, understanding what the gaps are there in the market, and then providing those customized solutions to the consumers. So I think that's something I would say most organizations, forward-looking organizations, long-term organizations would look to do.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Yes, sir. Sir, as we are on time crunch, so should we wind up the session now? And I would like Sonali to give vote of thanks to the panelists.
Sure.
Yeah. So thank you everyone, honorable panelists and all attendees. It's my privilege to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks. I, on behalf of UDGAM team and IIM Sirmaur team, extend a heartily vote of thanks to all speakers and gracing your important work and sharing with us your findings and experiences. A big thank you to Harshvardhan sir for moderating the panel so beautifully and directing the panel discussion in the most appropriate way possible. Also, you have mentioned the three C's combining together and that business models are carved out of customer needs. That was really brilliant. I must mention a deep sense of appreciation for Gaurav sir for rightly mentioning continuous keeping a check on the touch points that the customers have. Also mentioning that digital is a new reality being transformation in the agricultural sector. Further, Sushant sir also mentioned it's all about creating experiences and getting closer to the customer. Also, in his keynote speech, he has explained how digital is not very far and it's soon to be incorporated. Also, in our daily activities. Also, he mentioned how a blend of the two, physical and digital, will become the next new normal. I may like to express our sincere thanks to Satya sir for beautifully mentioning that every piece of content must tell a story, and it's all about looking at the data and what the customer journey is experience and building your brand. I may also like to express my thanks to Prunal sir on his insight on the OTT platform and recent trend in the data consumption and growing users, saying the pandemic is fueling the fire. Once again, I would like to extend my thank you on behalf of whole team. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. All the best.
Thank you, sir.
Students, you are requested to kindly write your roll number in the chat, please.